In this lesson, we will be talking about what is SVG, how to create a new document, and also how to pan and zoom. So let's start off right away by talking about what SVG is. SVG is a file format that stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. To better understand what we can do with Inkscape, let's look more into what this is. It is an open file format to create two-dimensional graphics. The SVG format is supported by many other open source and commercial programs, so you can be sure that whatever you create inside of Inkscape will also work with other programs too. It supports three main types of graphic objects, which are vector graphics, which remain clear and sharp at any size, so we can zoom in on them or zoom out and they will always maintain the same clearness. It also supports raster graphics, which are pixel based, like JPEG, for example, which don't maintain the same clearness and sharpness when we zoom in and out, but are better for creating more detailed images, for example. And then it also supports text, like we can see here in this screen right now where I have created this text. The next thing to know about SVG is that it uses XML to define images. This means that you can make changes to an image using XML editors. This is obviously if you have knowledge in XML and encoding, but we won't be covering this in this course. But since they are made of XML-based code, SVG files are very compact and portable and can be compressed in a way that doesn't affect image quality. This makes them great for web graphics that have to be downloaded, so that makes it great for web and for mobile use. So these are the main things that we need to know about SVG graphics and what we will be working mainly with when we are using our Inkscape software, since, as I mentioned before, it works with SVG. Next, we will be talking about how to create a new document. First of all, Inkscape can't really work without an open document. So when you start this program for the first time, there will be automatically a document already open, like in this case. If you need a document of a specific size, all you need to do is go to the File drop-down menu up here on the top left corner. Select New from Templates right here by scrolling down. And here you will find various different sizes of documents that we can use. So for example, an A4 leaflet, we can use a blank page, a business card, for example, and we can also search here in the search bar if we have a specific measurement or document that we're looking for. So for example, we could type in A4 and it will show us the A4 leaflet option. We can also select this arrow here and see the different options that we have in this window. So if we select A4, for example, we can select then here, create from template. And that will open a brand new document with this option that we have chosen. In this case, an A4 leaflet that is folded in 3 parts. And see how it automatically gives us guides and rulers so that we can know exactly which part of the document we're working on. And also know that once you start working on the document, you can always change the size at any point. All we need to do is go to the document properties that we can find in the drop-down menu under File, scroll down and select Document Properties. And when that is open, we will find here on the left the option to choose the width, the height, and also the orientation of our document. So right now we have a horizontal orientation, but we could also choose a vertical orientation and notice how now it is completely different. And again, we can also change the size here. And if we have a specific width or specific height, all we need to do is type it inside of this space here. Another option that we have is if we, for example, were to create a very quick drawing or square in this area, when we are in the document properties, we can also select resize to content. So if we select this, notice now how the size of our page is the same size as the square. We can make another example by going back, and as we saw in the previous lesson, we can cancel an action that we have just done by selecting contemporarily the Control key and the Z key. And now we are back to the previous document size. So if we were to take a different shape, like a star for example, and make it here, and then we select resize to content, notice how the document page now surrounds our star perfectly. So the edges of the star fit precisely within the edges of the page. So this is very useful if you are working first on a specific drawing, and then you can later decide the size of the page. But let's close this up now and let's go to the first document that we had at the beginning. Another very important aspect to learn when we're first learning how to use Inkscape is how to zoom and pan to better control your gestures and to better control what you're doing in your workspace. To pan around the canvas, you can use these scroll bars that you find on the side and right below. So you can do it like so. You click and drag, and this way you can pan around and move the document. If for some reason you can't see them, just press contemporarily Control B. So Control and the letter B. I have selected that now, and notice how now the scroll bars have disappeared. And if I select contemporarily again, Control B, they will reappear. If you notice this small magnifying glass at the top of the vertical scroll bar, this is the toggle button for making the zoom level match the window size. So if you were to resize the window of Inkscape, the document will stay in the exact same position and will scale its size to the scaling of the window. If you want to pan in any direction, just select your space bar. This is if you're using a mouse. So by selecting your space bar and then just moving your mouse without clicking anything, you will be able to pan in any direction. So this is very useful. Another way is you can also hold down your Control key on your keyboard and use the arrows on your keyboard also to move around your canvas, like so. So keep the Control key pressed and then press your arrows on your keyboard. Also, if you're using a mouse that has a scroll wheel, you can use that as well, like so. Scrolling up and down, you're able to pan up and down on your canvas. Inkscape has a set of preferences that you can use to control the scrolling effect, which is very interesting. All you need to do is go to your preferences. So let's select the icon with the arrow towards the right down here. Select preferences, move that to the side, and go to behavior here. Under behavior, you can scroll to scrolling. And here you will notice that there are different options. You can select this, for example, so mouse move pans when space is pressed. So exactly as I said before, when you keep your space bar pressed and move your mouse, you can use it to pan around the canvas. And then here you can choose the amount of scrolling and movement that you can do based on pixels. So every time you scroll, it goes by 40 pixels, and you can make that more or less depending on your preferences. And the same you can do with arrows. So every time you click an arrow, so let's say you click the arrow to the right, it will move 15 pixels to the right. So you can change that as well, make that more or less based on your personal preferences. Again, you can also choose the speed in which it scrolls and the threshold. So all of these details are very interesting if you have specific preferences when it comes to scrolling and panning around your canvas. But let's X out of this, because to zoom, we can also use these three buttons in our commands bar here on the right. For example, we could select zoom to fit selection in window. So to do so, we need to select one of the objects. I created these three very simple shapes quickly just to use as an example, but obviously we will see how to create shapes in the following lessons. But for now, let's just go ahead and use our Select and Transform Objects tool. Let's select one of these and then select our Zoom to Fit selection in window. So notice how the zoom has gone precisely around our rectangle here. Let's try again. And to zoom out, all we need to do if you're using a mouse is select the Control key and then use your scroll wheel and scroll back. In this way we can move. And again, if you're using a mouse, all you need to do is click your scroll wheel, and that way you can also pan around like so. So let's select our star now, for example, and select the same command, which is zoom to fit selection in window. So notice now how the star fits perfectly inside our window. We also have the option to select zoom to fit drawing in window. So now the whole drawing fits into the window, so it goes precisely around the edges. And then we have the last option here, which is zoom to fit page in window. So now our full page fits inside the window. Inkscape also has a zoom tool, and we can find it here in the toolbar on the left. You will notice it by this tiny magnifying glass, and it says precisely zoom in or out. So we can click it here in our toolbar, or we can also click our Z key on our keyboard. All we need to do is click to zoom in, and it will go based off of where we are clicking specifically. And then to zoom out, all we need to do is select our Shift key on our keyboard and then select again and start clicking where we want to zoom out. You can also click anywhere and drag to select a specific area to zoom in on, like so. So we can zoom out again, selecting Shift and clicking. And now we can drag on our star and it will zoom in perfectly in this area. And notice when you have the zoom tool selected, all of these other options appear on top. You can also find these in the View drop-down menu under Zoom, all of these options. So we have Zoom in, Zoom out, Zoom 1:1. So it's the realistic sizing of the zoom. Then we also have Zoom 1:2. We also have Zoom 2:1. Then Zoom selection. So in this case, we need to select an object, for example. So let's select here and then take our zoom tool again and select zoom to object selection. Let's go back to our view menu, zoom. We also have zoom drawing. So as we saw before in this section here, it will zoom in on the whole drawing. We also have zoom page. Again, we saw this previously, so it will center and fit the whole page within our canvas. Zoom page will fit the whole page. Then zoom page width, center page. And then we also have zoom previous and zoom next. So Inkscape has this very interesting system where it remembers the actions that you have done when zooming. So the types of zoom that you have done. And we find this right here on these two icons. This is zoom previous and this is the zoom next zoom. So if we select this one and keep selecting, it will remember all the different zoom that we have done. And again, selecting the next one, it will repeat the zooms that we have done. So this is a very interesting tool that we have right here. And obviously, all of these different zoom methods also have keyboard shortcuts. We can see them in the view menu under zoom, how we can recall all of these selecting keys on our keyboard. So for zoom in, we need to select the plus key. Zoom out, we can select the minus key. Zoom 1 to 1, just selecting number 1 on our keyboard. Zoom 1 to 2, again selecting number 2. Zoom selection is number 3. Zoom drawing number 4. Zoom page number 5 on our keyboard. Zoom page width is number 6 on our keyboard. Then to center our page, we need to press contemporarily the Control key and the number 4. Zoom previous is this little accent that we have here. And zoom next is this other symbol that we can always find on our keyboard. Another interesting feature that we can find inside of Inkscape is that we can match the level of zoom to a real physical measurement. So we can do that by selecting again inside of our preferences here below. Select interface. You will find a zoom correction factor here in this area. So let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see it even better. First of all, you can select the unit of measure here. So at the moment it's in millimeters, but you can also choose centimeters, inches, pixels, for example, but let's keep it for millimeters. And then what you want to do is get a real physical ruler or tape measure and hold it up to your screen right here where you see this ruler. And then use the controller that we have here to stretch or thin the screen ruler to match it up to your real physical ruler. So then when it matches up perfectly, so let's say for example like so, you can close the window, and then when you press the 1 key on your keyboard, it will zoom in 1 millimeter on your screen that will match 1 millimeter in real life. This is obviously if you have matched up your ruler, your physical ruler with the on-screen ruler, then if you zoom in by 1, it will zoom in 1 millimeter in real life. So that is a very, very cool and interesting feature that we can find inside of Inkscape. And finally, when you select one object, so let's select this circle for example, pressing and holding the letter Q on your keyboard will give you a quick zoom on that object. And then when you release Q, it will snap back directly. So that is another very cool feature to learn, to be able to zoom in quickly on an object that you have created. So that is all for today. Now that we have seen exactly what SVG is, which is the main file format that Inkscape uses, we've also seen how to create a new document and how to modify a document and how to zoom and pan in your canvas. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. If you have any questions, any suggestions, you can leave them in the comment box below. And if you want to give our page some support, you can subscribe, and that way you can also stay updated on all our new courses and all our new videos. Thank you for following along. I will see you in the next lesson.